started to think about what and how and why I wanted to move a bit more out into the country area, and the barn conversion come available as an opportunity. And we came and viewed the place, and when we looked at it, the cows were still in it, so it was a proper barn when we took it on. Looked at it from a creativity point of view of how it could become a house or a dwelling. And we actually purchased the place between me and my brother with the intentions of splitting it into two different houses, of which we did do eventually, and to keep a proportion of it for his parents as a granny extension, so we could all live in the same area, really.
But you must have had some kind of creative background.
Yes, I mean, building was my passion, and I'd done lots of building opportunities and different things for other people in the years. But financially, it's obviously a big risk and all them different things. And it took me till, my mid-40s, I guess, to get established enough to be in the position to take the financial commitment. But the creativity side of doing barns is what I had a passion for from when I first started building when I left school. So you could actually, with building, there is a proportion of when you stand back, you can see what you've actually done, and you can stand there for a long time.
So had you done projects like this before
Similar,
for other people?
yeah, similar for other people, yeah.
Is that for a job or just
as a job for other people from a commercial point of view. I'd done barns and new houses and different things, but this was a big project because it was quite a big building. It was a big undertaking, and I run it alongside also doing work for other people. So it was mainly done at holiday times and weekends, and over a period of a couple of years before we actually moved into it. We were living in another house at the time, but the aspects of trying to keep all the features of the building, the integral parts of the structure and the roof and everything else, trying to keep all the character was quite an important thing for me. But I also wanted to keep the modern side of things as well. So, the newer appliances, I didn't want it to be something out of the dark ages, even though it was a barn conversion. But in a rural setting, obviously you've got, the fields and the trees and everything else around you, it's your own bit of the planet. And that was what the appeal was.
How did you find the place? And I think you touched on it briefly at the start, but how did you find
We stumbled across it. It was just advertised with a local agent when we were looking, and it was sort of advertised from a point of view as it had permissions already granted for turning into a dwelling, but that's just a piece of paper from the council, basically. The actual architectural side of it then we had to go into from the drawings, and obviously all the...
And did you do the drawings yourself?
No, I had somebody to do them for me, but the creativity side of how the place was going to be laid out,
and you worked with them?
Worked with them, yeah, quite closely to say how much bedroom space we wanted and what we extended to do for his parents, and engage that as a separate annex as well and that type of thing. But also we had to liaise with the local councils because it was a barn conversion to keep it in character, so we therefore could only have wooden framed windows, and we had to use all existing materials to maintain that character aspect of it looking like a barn. So which was the appeal from the outside anyway, what we wanted to do. But obviously when you come inside, it's all nice and new and modern, so everything's been completely rebuilt. It was all new interior walls, all new everything from right through then, so it's practically a brand new house on the inside.
So what was the look you were going for then? I think you just touched on it then briefly, but so was it a modern, or did you want it to look traditional?
I think it was to try and keep a modern type, nice clean lines, that type of thing, but retain the character of the roof structure and the fabrication of the building, so it didn't lose its identity as a barn. So we went for keeping certain timber type doors and wooden features and tiled floors right through, simply because we're in an area where we're surrounded by fields, so yes, it's nice and dry in the summer, but you get the mud in the winter, so being able to keep it tidy and clean and that sort of thing, we went for the more harder type surfaces for the floor areas.
You mentioned there about the wetness in that, because where you are in the fields and stuff around, so were there any problems with building the house? Did you ever encounter
we had quite, over the duration of time that we had quite severe rains and periods of time where the weather was against us for months on end, really, where we were limited to what type of work we could do. It wasn't too bad once we'd actually got the physical roof structure on, and we could start on some of the internal works then. So from that point of view. But with it being a barn, access was one of the difficult things when we had lorries delivering equipment. They were big lorries, so getting the physical vehicles in off the road was sort of a bit of an issue sometimes, depending on who was delivering. And then consequently being a physical barn inside, we hadn't got the luxury of being able to have scaffolding up and fork trucks around. Everything had to be carried in, so it was all physically brick by brick, all the internal walls, all the timbers, all the studding, all the flooring, everything had to physically come through one doorway and be carried in and carried up the stairs and up ladders before we had stairs put in, and all the concrete had to be barred in and all that type of thing. So we had a lot of manual labour side, what was probably more intensive than you would do with like a new build house where you can get all around it and that type of thing. And obviously the drains as well, there's no drains, so we had to dig them, put septic tanks in, forget that type of thing done. So we got sewerage and the facility to do water treatment on them.
So it was effectively all done by scratch then, all the
sewerage? It was completely done, like I said.
It was just a barn, was it a cow shed?
It was literally a cow shed. When we bought it, the cows were still in it eating hay when we came and viewed the place. So, it goes that far back. It was literally 4 walls really when we started. We had to take all the internals of the cow sheds out and break all them out and dig footings inside for internal walls and concretes and drainage and everything. So it was a big undertaking. It was a hearty task.
Yeah. Okay, we'll pause it there and check out that. That was good.
Budget wise,
how did you
when we first saw the place advertised, we sort of come and made some inquiries with the farmer who owned the place next door. It had been his grandparents' building. I think off the top of my head, I remember it was about 250,000. When we or that's what it was up for sale for. Initially, because it's a rural barn, there's no mortgage facility or anything, so we had to raise the money between me and Nick, which we borrowed against those other houses to buy the place cash. But we had a bit of a break period where we got involved with the farmer 12 months previous, and we tried to knock him down in price, obviously, because we've got to raise the cash, but he wasn't budging. He was prepared to sort of wait for a while, but so we sort of left it for 12 or 18 months. It was probably near 18 months, and then we saw it was still back up for sale again, so we come back and sort of started negotiating then, and we managed to secure some of the land off the farmer then within the sort of price range what we wanted. And I think we eventually got it down to about 220,000 with 4 acres of land with it, but the land wasn't included in the first place. When he very first came, he wanted 250,000 for the barn, so the integration of sort of that period of had lapsed, which helped us in our favour as a project. Which when you're doing something of this scale, it's a massive spend, so every bit we could save on the purchase price helped towards the fund of the actual building itself.
So obviously you were passionate about this.
I mean, like I say, I'd spent a big chunk of my building career doing it for other people all the time, but for actually get there yourself and achieve to do it yourself was a big testament to what I wanted to actually get to, and very passionate about doing it.
Money's obviously a big thing for anyone.
Yes.
So what did you ever think halfway through, I should have just bought one?
Not really, no, because we were coming from a new house into this one, and we'd been in older houses prior to getting into a new one, but you don't get the same character feel. No. So the aspects of being able to create something yourself and being able to produce something how you want it to look, and the aesthetics of how you've worked out in your mind it's going to look, and that's very difficult for some people who don't have a lot of that type of vision, but we're coming from a building background and being creative nature of a person, if you like, the building side, I found it was thoroughly enjoyable, and this will stand a lot longer than I'll be living at the end of the day. So we've left something here, but as regards to a new house, they're very clinical. Although this is newer inside, we've retained that character features of the actual barn, and it doesn't look like a brand new house, and that was important for me to do that. That was what I wanted the look that I was trying to achieve. We had hiccups along the way, like I say, and obviously this financial side of things. The purchase was a big amount of money for anybody, you know, and then we had a percentage of money that we'd saved on the purchase price, so we had a budget to start off buying the raw materials and that type of thing. But then the labour costs as well wasn't so much our time, and you know, there was a lot of family members who we used to come on a weekend. There'd be like 6 or 7 of us here on a weekend doing different aspects of it, and without their support we wouldn't have been able to achieve it, you know, and they gave up their time, and it almost become like a pet project for a group of us for a few years, you know, with my dad who's now in his 70s and my Uncle John who's in his 80s now, but it used to get him here on a weekend and it gave them something to look forward to, you know, from a point of view. And obviously the same thing if they'd never been involved with a job of this scale or anything in their life. So from a natural point of view of the enthusiasm to do it and all that type of thing, yes, they weren't necessarily that physically able at that age, but the knowledge and their input was priceless, you know.
Yeah.
From that point of
So
view.
what kind of experience, as you mentioned your family, so has your family always been from this background of building?
None of my family from building background at all, so no.
Oh, so
no,
just,
so
kind of just
they were just helping
hobbies
labour, yeah. So you know, none of them. My Uncle John was an upholsterer, so he recovered furniture and stuff like that. So he's very creative in that way, but not from a building background.
So it was all new to a lot of them.
Yeah,
and obviously it was you.
And my dad worked for British Coal, so he had a big chunk of his life working for the coal board, and then worked for BT before he retired. So they weren't from a building construction background at all. They were here, but just hands-on and help. But they were very inspirational in ideas and different things that we discussed as a group and as a part of how we would approach things. And everything on the scale of a job like this is you can't physically do it on your own. Everything's too heavy, too big, too awkward. So you need a group of people. So the planning side and the intervention of how we're going to do things and all of them things had to be planned weeks and months, some of the jobs in advance. You know, you'd build up to doing certain things, but the actual moving of the materials, the manhandling would take days of preparation, and then you would be prepared for when you come then on the weekend you'd actually be able to do that particular job you'd set out to do. And that's how we went on for months and months in stages.
So the house you'd come from before, was that sold before you started doing this?
No, we lived in that. We actually lived in the other house for probably 2 years or so, whilst this was under construction.
Right. So,
and then we moved in here and sold that one after.
So you're building a house, you spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
And you're almost, I guess you're using your creativity to complete it. But was there any part of that you thought, I'm kind of worried a bit now, it's not looking how I wanted it to look, or did it ever look how it?
No, I think the barn was always going to be, in my mind, I would set it out to be. The only issues you get really is just running short of money. You know, you want maybe a certain type of look that's 3 times more expensive than what you'd planned for, and that type of thing, like kitchens. You know, you could run away with a fortune with kitchens. You know, you could spend £20,000 on a kitchen, or you could spend £5,000 on a kitchen. So when you go the middle of the road somewhere and that type of thing. And same with like floor tiles. You know, you might see some what you think, oh, they're really nice, but they're far too expensive really for the type of house, or it would look out of character. You know, putting marble floors down would have looked terrible. Yeah. But we had some Italian ceramic tiles that we put down on the floors, and they've worked out a treat. You know, it's achieved the look that we wanted to achieve. So that in itself takes time, just sourcing the right material. And when you're out buying it, you've got to have that image in your head of what it's going to look like. Are they going to look in character with the barn? Is it going to be in keeping? Because that's, again, the key part with any of these things is to maintain that character, and you can't get that with a new house. You know, with the house we lived in Fenton was a brand new 4-bedroom house. You know, it was a nicely bricked house, nicely finished, nicely everything, but it had no character. You know. So that's the next part. Some of the bigger challenges that we faced was the dividing walls internally, and also the roof structure and construction. But the internal wall, which separates it between two dwellings had to be a double skinned, like two single bricks together of concrete blocks. And when we planned to do that dividing wall, we had an articulated lorry deliver it, basically, and it was a complete articulated lorry full of these concrete blocks, which all had to be then craned off and loaded outside. Well, consequently, we've only got a single door for come in, so every single one had to be hand carried in.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to see now because you've got the first floor and the ceilings and everything else. But when it was a big open space, you can imagine laying one brick next to another, next to another. This thing was absolutely gigantic. So it was 3 stories high internally of concrete blocks that we had as a double thing either side, and it was like building a block of flats. It was that big. It was gigantic, you know. And the challenges of being able to put scaffolding up on the inside and then keep loading them up and carrying them up ladders. Bearing in mind we had to do one side then the other side because they all had to be tied together for building control reasons and soundproofing and all them things. But that was immense. It went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, you know, just physical labour of actually trying to achieve these things. And the other biggest of the challenges really was when we actually took the roof off. So before we built this wall, obviously we had to take out all the internals, and then the building control people, then we tackled the roof then. So because we got used existing material, we stripped the entire existing roof off and just retained what they call the purlins, the king and queen purlins, which are still exposed now with the existing fabrication. But the roof rafters, what are called the rafters, what support all the tiles, we renewed all them, and it was like building Noah's Ark upside down. It was, you know, the physical length of the roof from the ridge, what we call the top of the ridge, to the eaves at the bottom, again was something like 7 or 8 metres long. So, you know, we had massive challenges in reconstituting all the timber, and again the same principle. We had an Arctic full of timber to recreate the actual physical roof, and that presented some big challenges again because everything's having to lift everything from the ground. You know, there was no cranes, there was me and a couple of old people, you know, in real terms. I got my brother here and my dad and my uncle and stuff, and you know, a few helpers, but everything had to be literally handed up, and you know, every nail, every piece of wood, everything, and then retiled again. So a normal house roof, in jobs I've done previously, a normal house takes about anywhere between 7,000 and 8,000 tiles. There was 22,500 tiles on this roof, so it's an enormous roof, you know. And like I say, just everything being on a vast scale. But when we got the roof done, we effectively, you know, completed that and got that part done, which took months to do really. Then the next big task then was this middle wall, this separating wall. That was, you know, because that had got to have its own foundations in because of the physical size and weight of it. So we had to have a mini digger inside the building, which we could get in from the far end, dug all the footings out and then concrete, and then had to build this gigantic wall to separate the two actual dwellings before we could then start digging out for floors and all sorts of different things and drains going in place. So nothing could go in until then 2 major tasks were overcome, which was obviously the re-roofing and the floor, the dividing wall.
So did anything change along the way with your plans? As in, did maybe you added something else, or?
We made slight alterations from the plans internally, as in like we might have moved the door a little bit. I've enjoyed doing the project. I think it's been a lifetime ambition by lots of people really to try and achieve something of this, of which I have had the privilege of being able to do in my life. Whether I'd tackle another one is a different question. I probably would, down to my nature, but I'm quite happy. I really love living here, and I think until somebody's actually gone through that process of creating something themselves, you know, they won't enjoy. I mean, everybody loves a new house, but physically doing it with your own hands and everything else gives you a different sort of satisfaction.
Yeah, because a lot of people, maybe they buy a house and then maybe they'll do the garden themselves and they think that's a big achievement, but actually doing the whole house yourself.
Yeah, and I think you know, with the semi-rural setting where we are, we're not overlooked by anybody else. And you know, when I pull in off the gates, off the main road now, it's like you're on your own bit of the planet sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's that appeal, I suppose, really, of what was the inspiration to drive me forward to do this, you know. And there's been lots of other things that have all contributed to that, but here we are sort of 10, 12 years later now nearly, and I'm loving every minute of it. I still have to cut the grass every year, we still have to tidy up outside, get rid of the weeds, but you know, then we're going to be ongoing every year. But the actual building is complete now. There's other things I still like to do, but we've had respite for a few years from it now, and I'll probably tackle the council again, see if we can get a little bit of an extension maybe on the side of it. But you know, again, we'll face the same challenges, but I think it's that creative side in me that is not, you know, will always be happily discontent until I've done a bit more or I've done a bit more.
So, just finally, what would you say to people who are planning on maybe building their own house?
Anybody who was to undertake a project like this, or you know, building a new house from scratch, I think everybody goes through a roller coaster of emotion, certainly from the aspects of the planning side of things, trying to get what you want. If you can't get what you want all the time, how you compromise. And certainly from a financial point of view, you know, whatever budget you think you've got in your mind, it'll go over, plus more, plus more, plus more. And the longer you stay in a location, obviously the upkeep and things still cost money. But would I do it again? Yes, I probably would.
Great. And what would you say about maybe people who want to do it, but like you say, are maybe not as skilled, or don't have it? Do you think it's realistic for someone who's not got many skills?
I suppose really, if you looked at it from that point of view of if you were taking a project on of this side and you hadn't got the knowledge that I'd got to start with, or hadn't got the foresight or, you know, the inspiration to do these things, it's a much bigger challenge. And you know, some people have had very traumatic experiences, but on the whole, I think the creativity is one side of things, but the realistic side of understanding the structural engineering side and all of them things, that's where there's a big lot of expense that I personally have been able to save in the experiences that I've had in the years to be able to tackle a job like this. But if you're reliant on other people, you know, or you've got third party builders to come in, then your budget would probably double what I've paid in real terms. You probably, you know, have less heartaches in some ways, but other heartaches in another way, you know, from a financial strain point of view. But on the whole, I've thoroughly enjoyed this project, and you know, it feels like a home because I've created it myself.
Yeah.
You know, I think from that point of view, rather than just buying from something like Barrett Homes or something, you know, it's a one-off spec that you wouldn't be able to recreate, you know, in the same period, I suppose, from that point of view.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.